Hi everyone, this is Mary from Level Up Your Life podcast, episode 2. Today we are going to be talking about paradigm shifts and what that means to us and what that means in our lives and in our family and in our community. I want to take a fast minute to say thank you to everyone for all the love and support on the first podcast. Had a lot of views and I had a lot of subscriptions. Thank you. And I just am really overwhelmed with all of the wonderful response and positive feedback I received from the first podcast. So, in that vein, I just want to say thank you. And if you're able to be here today, thank you. And if you're listening to the replay, thank you very much for listening in and taking the time. The first thing I wanted to talk about was this crazy notion that I have heard on social media, everywhere actually, from social media to corporate America and in between. And it's this notion that perception is reality. That can't be any more further from the truth. It's almost laughable. Perception is not reality. And people who believe everything that they see, I'm going to take a stand and say that they lack some critical thinking and they don't question things, because there's always something under the surface and there's always a story, and everyone has a story. And those stories maybe not, right there for everyone to see, written on their sleeve, written on their face. We tend to put our best face forward in life, both as a protective mechanism and also a coping mechanism. And we try very hard to just kind of go with the flow. I think they call it the mask that people wear. On social media, we see that mask everywhere. All the people that you see on social media that look like they have their shit together really don't. All the beautiful people out there who look like, they just woke up in full makeup and beautiful clothes. No. Everyone's got a journey. Everyone's got things going on. Everyone's got problems. Everyone's problems are different. Most certainly, I have my problems, you have your problems. And as a community, and as I want to create the community online here with this podcast, I think that we need to come to an understanding right away that we are not exactly what we see. There's just so much more to each other. There's so much more to life. There's so much more to the universe than what we see at face value. And I challenge everyone to question everything. There's a show that I watch quite routinely that is always saying, question everything. And the reason is because you may be surprised at the answers. You may think that you have all the answers, and you may think that you already know the story, or, well, it has to be this way because that's what it looks like. Or, well, I've seen this in the past, so I'm certain that it's this way. And you find out that that's not exactly true. You find out that everybody does have a story, and everybody does have different things that are just the depth of everyone's stories, and the depth of people. We can't take each other on face value. We have to talk. We have to communicate. We have to have compassion, and we have to grow. We have to grow, and we have to grow together. And that's the main reason for this podcast, for this series. This series is called Breaking the Conditioning. One of the reasons that it's called that is because I'm challenging all of you to take a good look at where you are and how we got here, how you got here. And I'm not talking about in terms of career or family or where you're at in life. I'm talking about your mindset. I'm talking about your family history. I'm talking about the way you react, the way you see things, and to challenge that a little bit so that we can grow and we can be more positive influence in each other's lives, and also as an example for the generations that are coming up. When we're talking about paradigms, and we're going to explore paradigm shifts in this episode. Normally, paradigm shifts, we're talking scientific. We're talking about the cosmos, we're talking about cause and effect, we're talking about facts versus theory, and that sort of thing. And that's not what this is about. This is about us and the paradigm shifts in our lives. In our 20s, and when I say paradigm shifts, I'm talking about changes, the seasons of our lives. In our 20s, change is expected. It's always expected. You're 20. You're just getting out of college, or you're just getting into college, or you're just getting out on your own. You're just getting your first apartment. I mean, you're going from childhood, from relying on your parents, to being out on your own and being a young adult. And that in itself is a paradigm shift. So in your 20s, it's really, really expected that you're going to try things and not like them, and try other things and maybe like those, and you get to know who you are a little bit more, and you get to experience a lot of different things that you didn't before. In our 30s, it's a little different. It's a different paradigm shift. This is where, we talk about, or we think about, our life, where we want to, what we want it to look like, and where we want to go. This is the time where most people get married. I mean, a lot, and I understand that time frames are different for everyone. So this is just a generality. So in your 30s, you might get the house, you might move to a new city, you might get married, you might have a child, you might not get married and have a child. You become a parent. So that's a new role. You become a spouse. That's a new role. You climb up the corporate ladder, or you climb up, whatever career ladder that you're looking at, and you develop your hard work and your expertise in that field. So these are different things that go on usually in your 30s, 20s, 30s. And then when you get to your 40s, this is a particular thing. See, I usually tell people I made all my mistakes in my 20s, and I spent all of my 30s trying to correct them. And then when I got to my 40s, I stopped apologizing. I'm like, that's it. This is it. I've made the mistakes. I've tried to rectify them, and now I am who I am. It's not to say I'm not learning. It's to say that I'm making peace with my past. I'm putting things to bed. I'm growing. I'm maturing. I've got other things that I want to do. When you get past 45, for those of you who are, listening, who are over 45, you understand what I'm saying. There's a different mindset. There's a different thing that's going on, and it is called, I want to say, the passing of the baton. It is called gaining wisdom. It is called becoming the matriarch of your family, or the patriarch of your family. It's when we become seasoned. It is when we bury our parents, usually. It is when we wind up understanding life and death, when people that we know are no longer with us. It's when we experience a whole different world of, I don't want to say pain, but of growth. There is a lot of suffering that goes involved with losing loved ones. and with becoming more mature, with watching our children go to college, with you know, the death of a marriage or the beginning of a new marriage. There's a lot of different things that go on, and these changes are your choice. The changes inside you are your choice. The changes externally are the changes that are the things that you can't change. The death of a parent and things like that. But this is the time in your life when, you know, you start to wonder, how did I get into this career? Or how did I get into this marriage? Or how did I get into this mess? And you decide, I want something different. I don't want to live in a cold area. I want to live in a warm area. Or you know, there's a whole variety of different things that you're thinking of. I love this career, but maybe there's a little bit more going on. Maybe I'm not living up to my potential. What is my potential? I mean, these are all questions that we're all asked. A lot of times we are doing what we have to do in our 20s and 30s to get by. Maybe it's survival mode. Maybe we're living for our children. Maybe we have that career because it makes good money and it makes sense to have it, although it's not, you know, exactly what you wanted to do. All of these different things kind of take place in your 40s. And then you start to make choices. Is this really where I want to be? Is this really what I want to do? And you start thinking about changing. And it's the changing that is the biggest challenge, because a couple of things happen here. First off, change is great, but we've been spoon-fed to believe that change is bad. You know, no, just have one job, keep doing it, you know, make sure your bills are paid, make sure everybody's taken care of, you know, just keep on that path. That's that one path, and you'll be okay. The reason why we're taught that is because the people around us want us to be safe. And it's not that they don't want us challenged or they don't want us to, you know, do the things that we want to do. It's they're afraid we're going to fail. They're afraid we're going to suffer. They're afraid that we're going to change and not need them. We're afraid, you know. And that fear is projected on the people. It's projected on all of us. And then we become afraid to change. And that's where the problem is, because the only thing constant in this universe is change. So let's not be so afraid of it. I met someone who was a very, very wonderful artist, and she works a corporate job. And for 20 years, this person would go to work, do her job, come home alone, and just go through the motions of life, because that's what she, you know, that's what pays the bills, that's what works. But her passion was in art, and her passion was in drawing and photography and watercolors, and she does wonderful, beautiful work. And when I found out that that was her passion and she wasn't using it, I said, what are you doing? She said, well, you know, I have to do, you know, I have to pay the bills, I have to live in this small box, is what it came down to. I have to live in this small box because that's what I was told is safe. It's not safe to go after my passion. And that's a shame, because that led to years and years of depression and years of just a stifled creativity. And I was very sad. And I encouraged this person to get back to it. If that is your passion, get back to it. I work in corporate America. I love my job. And I'm doing this too. And this is because I have a passion for reaching out and connecting to other people. I also have a calling. which I have found during this pandemic. And I also have a voice that I found in this pandemic. And it's important to me to reach out and have these conversations, because maybe nobody else is. Maybe nobody else is really talking about the hard stuff, taking the Band-Aid off of that, and really getting into the details of things. So that's the reason for this podcast. I do feel a calling to help people be a better version of themselves, and sometimes it's you gotta just be honest, and you have to talk about the things that maybe we didn't think of before. And some of it is the conditioning, which is why this series is called Breaking the Conditioning. The conditioning is all around us, and it's been happening since we were born. But it's not always the reality. It doesn't have to be our reality. One of the things that is lacking right now, I see, and it's just an opinion, is critical thinking and questioning everything. Why are we not going after our passion? Why do we think that we can't make money doing what comes naturally, or what our talents show, or why can't we do these things? And it's all the conditioning of, and I don't want to put blame, because there's no helpful nothing helpful about blame. So I want to just talk about, okay, we're here, and this is how we got here, and where are we going to go from here? One of the things that keeps us from changing is fear. And everybody talks about it. Oh, they're just afraid to try. Well, it's a little bit more than that. There's a ripple effect that happens when we change. And the first ripple effect happens in our family and in our close loved ones. They're the first people that really take possibly a negative view to changing, because you're stepping outside of that box that they've had you in. It's safe to understand that you have a corporate job and you're, or that you work 9 to 5, or that you work 10 to 6, or whatever the case may be. And it's a little eyebrow raising when you decide that you want to do something different. But that's what life is about. Life is about experiencing more than what you have and what you are doing. And it's okay to do it. And the biggest fear is, how am I going to be judged by people around me? And, what if my spouse isn't supportive of what I'm doing? And, my family doesn't seem to think I can do this. My friends seem to be trying to talk me out of it. You know what? Try and push all of that away. Out of your mind, out of your ears, out of your zone. Because the only thing that, failure is just an experience. That's all it is. Failure is an experience. The only true failure is not trying. Is not stepping out of your box. It's not listening to the person on the other end of the table giving you a different perspective. It's not trying to understand that there are different people in this world, and they have different viewpoints, and they're valid in their minds. They don't have to be valid in yours, but they need to be respected. And you need to be respected. It's important that we continually ask questions. For the longest time, people thought the world was flat, and it's pretty funny that that notion is coming back on the internet. People still think the world is flat, and I think that's a little weird. But it's been proven wrong. But it would have never been proven wrong if somebody hadn't said, are we really sure the world is flat? Why don't I go to the corner of the world and see if it's really flat? and somebody went to the corner of the world and said, "Hey, I did not fall off. Wow." And there's not a kitty cat over there trying to push things off either. um, the world is round, so questioning everything leads to a better perspective, a different perspective, and growth. That's the main thing. Learning new perspective, asking questions, educating yourself in something different or in somebody else's point of view can lead to growth, and growth leads to change. And that's what it's all about. The worst thing that could happen is you're on your deathbed and you're wishing you could do it over again. And you're wishing that you tried this, and you're wishing you tried that, and there's no more time. The only time that we have is now. And there's a way that you can fulfill all of your responsibilities and do what you want to do on the side. I mentioned before, I do have a corporate job, and I do love my job very much, and I'm very grateful for it, and I love the people I work with. But there's more to me, and the Lord has made me really aware that there is more to me, and that I have something to give to the community, and that I have something to give to my friends, and I have something to contribute in a positive way through these talks and through the one-on-one that I have with people. So it's very important that we try. And I challenge everyone to try. The other thing, when it comes to failure and when it comes to change and when it comes to trying things, there's nothing new under the sun. There's just not. So go ahead and try. Somebody once said, "Why do you want to do this podcast? There's a million people out there doing podcasts." And I said, "That's great. You know why? Because there's enough room for all of us to try. And each one of us has something different to say. And each one of us have something different to contribute. So here I am. And I'm loving it. Absolutely loving it. And I'm loving all of you who are giving me the opportunity to do this each week. If I can give someone a challenge, if I can give each of you a challenge, and this is a two-sided challenge. The challenge is, I want you to look back 5 years ago and see just where you were today 5 years ago. What did your life look like? What were the things that you were wishing for, and what were the things you were regretting? Then I want you to go back 10 years, and I want you to do the same thing. And it doesn't have to take a long time. It usually doesn't. Maybe even find a photo. That's always the best thing. Facebook timeline is so cool because it takes me back 10 or 15 years, and I can see where I was at that point in time. And sometimes you can even see what you were bitching about back then. And, you kind of take a look at that and you go, that's where I was, and this is where I am now. Once we figure out where we were, and then I want you to just take a quick piece of paper and write down where you would like to see yourself in 5 years. Now, this is not a logical exercise. This is not, if I take the path that I'm taking now, this is where I'll be. No, this is, what would you like to be at on this date 5 years from now? 5 years older, what would you like to see? Forget how you get there. Doesn't matter at all. It only matters that you take a look and see what your thoughts are. Where do your thoughts drift to? Do you want to live in a different town? Do you want to live in a different climate? Do you want to live, in a different house? Do you want to be going out more? Do you want to have a different career? Do you want to have different friends? Do you want to have a different, family dynamic? These are different things that you could be looking at. But you got to everyone has that snapshot in their head. And you got to put it down on paper. And you got to take a look at it and see, oh yeah, okay, yeah. I mean, I'll tell you right now, my 5-year picture has me oceanfront in the Bahamas. And everyone's like, yeah, Mayor, okay, yeah, all right. But you know what? I found a condo in the Bahamas for less money than what I'm paying for here in New Jersey. So, could happen. Could happen. But that is one of the things that I want to do. And I have probably 10 different things that I want to do. I would love to learn how to surf. I would also like to travel to Japan. And there's a lot of other things that I would love to do. So don't limit yourself. In this exercise, it's only an exercise, and it's just yours. Take a look at where you would like to be. It gets exciting when you figure that out. It gets exciting. And then if it's really something that you want, make a plan to get there. You can get there. You know, everybody is telling me, oh my gosh, you're going to live in Bahamas? Oh, there's hurricanes and all that kinds of stuff. I'm like, there's hurricanes in New Jersey. I could go out the door and get hit by a bus tomorrow. So, am I going to be living in fear? Oh my God, you know, I can't go to my happy place because it might become unhappy one day. Or am I going to stay in this spot and just be unhappy, you know, a larger portion of the days? So, I really, really urge you to do that. And when it comes to paradigms, one more thing I want to touch on is the different roles that we have throughout the years. And this has a direct correlation to where we were 5 years ago and 10 years ago and where we want to be in 5 years. You know, you go from being a child to a young adult, and then to as a spouse, and then not as a spouse in some cases. Sometimes you become a grandparent, sometimes you become an empty nester, sometimes you become a caregiver for the older generation, sometimes you stay a caregiver for the younger generation. There's a lot of different roles that we take. I recently, probably about 4 years ago, realized that I'm the matriarch of my family. And I realized that not only is my daughter watching everything that I do, so is everyone else. So is everyone else. And that's important for you to understand, is that although I'm talking about you and your life and your dreams, I'm also talking about the effect that you have on others. It's really important. It's important to understand that we become the storytellers of our families when our parents and our grandparents pass, when the older relatives pass. Do we know where we come from? We don't have Sunday dinners anymore. It's really interesting. I ask the younger generation sometimes about things, and they're like, I don't know anything about that. We used to have, conversations about, what Uncle Joe did, or what this person's doing, or what that person's doing. And we used to have conversations about what happened in the old days and where we came from. I recently had a younger relative, call me from a hospital room and say, Aunt Mary Beth, I have no idea about the medical history in our family. None. Nobody talks about it. So here I am helping this relative fill out a form. Okay, your father had this, your mother had this, your great-grandmother had this, and we were going down the line, and it got me thinking, do we know our stories? Do we know where we came from? Because if you don't know where you're coming from, how in the world are you going to know where you're going? We have to know these things, and we have to be, cognizant and aware that the younger generations are relying on us to be that wise person. If anything, it as much as I'm saying take risks, live your dream, make a plan, I'm also telling you that, hey, people are watching you. How wonderful is it that people are watching me do something that I love and trying something new? That gives them the idea, hey, if Aunt Marybeth can do it, why can't I? She's working a corporate job and she's doing these cool things on the side. She has her own travel agency, just for the Caribbean, because one day she wants to live in the Caribbean. Let's be the example. I guess that's the bottom line is, let's be the example. Let's reach out. Let's, family dynamics, as I told you in episode 1, cast a long shadow. So let's put some light on that shadow, and let's, really take a look at things. Recently, well, I guess a few years ago, we found some old letters from between my grandparents. And it's interesting, back then, they wrote letters, and it's almost like a little time capsule. And we got to find out some pretty funny stuff, and some pretty heavy stuff about our grandparents. And when we figured out the heavy stuff, when you start to realize that people are human and things, shape the family dynamic. And sometimes it's not about you, it's about them. It's about people being people. It really puts things in perspective. It also gives great entertainment at the dinner table when you can sit there and say, did you hear so-and-so ran off with so-and-so in, 1940? and these great dramas and dramatics, or funny stories like, did you know so-and-so used to do this or do that? I mean, think about it for a minute, and I challenge you to have a dinner and with the younger generation, and start some storytelling, and start talking about things, and start talking about your dreams and what you'd like to change. And I think that is about all we have. I've gone over a little bit of time. I just want to conclude with our next podcast. Will be unraveling, unlearning the generational myths. And that is the things that we've been taught from generation to generation that don't make sense anymore, and that really need to have a light shined on them and to be spoken to in truth, so that we can again understand where we came from and where we are and how we got here. And it's about mindset. It's not about circumstance. This is not a podcast about circumstance. It's about our mindset and about improving our life. The Lord said, do not rely on your own understanding. So let's not rely on our own understanding. Let's question things, talk about things, and learn new ways and new perspectives, in hopes that we can be an example of a positive change in our community and to each other, and to support each other with compassion and understanding. Please, if you are looking or watching this replay on YouTube, if you don't mind, if you could like if you do like it, the podcast, and also hit the subscription button. These are things that YouTube is looking at for me for this podcast. And I am not on Spotify yet, but I'm getting there. And my Instagram account should be active for this podcast probably next week. So please be on the lookout for that. I will be sending invitations to follow when that becomes available. And thank you so much. I do realize that this is Sunday, and it is also Mother's Day. And for all the mothers out there, I want to say Happy Mother's Day. And, I did send a wonderful text to my brothers that said, Happy Mother's Day, you mothers. So they took that quite well. Got to have some humor in life. Thank you all so much and for your continued love and support. If there are any topics that you would like me to research and talk about, or that you feel would be great for an episode, a series, I'm doing 4 episodes per series, and I would love to hear your comments, and I'd love to hear what you would like to see and hear from this podcast. Anyway, thank you very much. Much love to everyone. Have a wonderful week, and take care. Bye.